All right, let's shift our focus for now. Global markets rocketed higher as US President Donald Trump paused his steep new tariffs hours after they took effect. Trump has announced a 90-day pause on most of the tariffs for every country except for China. This led to a euphoric Wednesday for Wall Street as US stocks soared to one of their best days in history. The Dow Jones surged 7.9%, while the S&P 500 index rallied 9.5%. The tech-focused Nasdaq Composite Index jumped 12.2%. Stocks in Asia also rebounded strongly. In Japan, the Nikkei was up 7.2%, while in Seoul, the Kospi was up over 5%. Trump made the surprise announcement on Truth Social that he has authorized a 90-day pause on the higher tariffs, while the baseline 10% would remain. Trump later told reporters that he had been considering a pause for several days. On Monday, the White House had denounced a report that the administration was considering such a move, calling it fake news.
But this was something certainly we've been talking about for a period of time, and we decided to pull the trigger. And we did it today, and we're happy about it. I didn't know it would have that kind of an impact, but it's, I think they have the biggest increase in the history of the stock market. That's pretty good.
Trump, however, singled out the world's second biggest economy, China, saying its tariff rate would be raised to 125%. The U.S. president claimed that the reason for punishing tariffs on Beijing was based on the lack of respect.
China wants to make a deal. They just don't know how quite to go about it. You know, it's one of those things they don't know how quite. They're proud people. And President Xi's a proud man. I know him very well, and they don't know quite how to go about it.
U.S. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent also asserted that the pullback had been the plan all along to bring countries to the bargaining table. He claimed the stock markets did not factor into the president's decision.
We saw the successful negotiating strategy that President Trump implemented a week ago today. It has brought more than 75 countries forward to negotiate. It took great courage for him to stay the course until this moment. And what we have ended up with here, as I told everyone a week ago, they're in this very spot, do not retaliate and you will be rewarded. So every country in the world who wants to come and negotiate, we are willing to hear you. We're going to go down to a 10% baseline tariff for them, and China will be raised to 125 due to their insistence on escalation.
Now, Trump's turnaround, which came less than 24 hours after steep new tariffs kicked in on most trading partners, followed the most intense episode of financial market volatility since the early days of the COVID-19 pandemic. The upheaval erased trillions of dollars from stock markets and led to an unsettling surge in U.S. government bond yields. And for more on this, we were earlier joined by Gaurav Sansawal from Washington, D.C. He's the Fellow for India Chair at the Center for Strategic and International Studies. Here's what he had to say.
I think all of this makes the policy goal of tariffs fairly clear. And the policy goal here is to bring countries to the negotiating table. And if anything, in the Indian context at least, India began negotiating a bilateral free trade agreement right after Prime Minister Modi's trip to Washington in the early few days of the Trump presidency. And so in some ways, one could say that India was better prepared to handle this than many of the other countries that are now beginning to see what this is all about, which is that the US is trying to correct the imbalances in the overall trade policy, in the trading relationships that US has with other countries. And the way US wants to do it is by gaining leverage over countries through the imposition of tariffs, and then using that as a device to bring countries to the table, to the negotiating table, where there can be some amount of reciprocity. So I think it's fairly safe to say that the policy goal today has become more clear than it ever was, and negotiation is what all of this is aimed at.